All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about crankbaits, but not deep diving crankbaits just yet. We're going to get into that here in the future. But for right now, let's talk about square bills and rattle traps. So, you know, typically during the spring, you got people running square bills and rattle traps like crazy, and then they kind of settle it down and move to their deep diving crankbaits. And when I say deep diving crankbaits, I'm talking like 3XD all the way to a 10XD. Anything within that range, just your round bill crankbaits. They kind of set everything aside. But let me promise you something, this time of year is still a great time to be using square bills and lipless crankbaits. So stay tuned, this is something you don't want to miss. You got that spinnerbait on? Oh, he followed. Look at that. You see that? No. He followed it all the way up to right here. Still come up and got it. Corey, he's got the Hero 10. Got him. And every daggone time we go fishing, every 30 minutes he has to swap out an Enduro battery. Yeah. Got it. Come up off that brim there. Better. Still ain't big
a bit small.
Alright guys, so let's dive into it. Square bill crankbaits. When and why would you use a square bill crankbait? Well, typically the win is when I want something to move real erratic. So if I've got a lot of wind and the fish are kind of pushed up towards the banks and stuff, then I'm typically going to be running a square bill. But if they're kind of, you know, 10 to 15 foot off the bank, it doesn't really matter what depth your boat is, but if they're pushed up off the bank and suspended, square bills is a great way to still target those fish, especially square bills that dive anywhere 5 to 6 foot. So that's kind of where we're coming from when I'm talking about, you know, the square bill crankbait. So one of the square bills that I run today was sent to me by the good guys over at Thunderhawk Lures. You know, I've run this bait pretty much all day today. Yeah, all day, pretty much. All our big bites has come off of this bait. It's kind of funky looking. And, you know, they explained to me that, hey, it looks the way it does and it's built the way it is so you can go through cover real efficiently. And I put this thing through the ringer today. I mean, I threw it up in stuff that it shouldn't have come out of, and it did. It's kind of neat how it runs. Now, it does kind of run a little off to the left. It could just be the way that I have it tied. I don't have a split ring or nothing on it. I just have just the regular ring that comes on it, but I don't have like the hook ring where it can, you know, kind of free float and kind of move the way it wants to move. But I've just got it straight tied. I wanted to run it just organic as much as I could. 12-pound fluorocarbon, just my regular crankbait setup that I've told y'all about, but I ran it real efficiently. One of the other things that really surprised me, my first thought was when I was fixing to pull this bait out of the packet was, okay, I got to take the hooks off and I'm going to put my EWG Gamakatsu hooks on it. Those are not mine, guys. That's the hooks that come on this bait. So it was already set up and I run it just exactly like this. I don't know if you can see the marks all over the bottom of it, but the way this bait runs, once it hits the water, you kind of got to, you know, kind of jerk my rod tip a little bit just to help get it to dive, because it does try to scoot across the top of the water at times. Like as soon as it hits the water, I noticed it more on longer casts than I did on casts that's kind of close to me. So, you know, if you do end up buying some of these, I would suggest doing that. You know, pop your rod tip, let that bait dive a little bit, and then start cranking. But I run it fast. I run it a little bit slow. I don't like to run stuff slow. I think y'all know that. But either way, I run it a little bit slow. I run it really fast. It's got a great action. Several of the bass that I caught actually like come up to the boat. I paused the bait and it just come up to the top of the water and slammed it. So yeah, you know, it's a great option. You know, if you don't want to go with Thunderhawk, I've always used Lucky Craft, Strike King, stuff like that. But you know, I would definitely say give these guys a chance. They're not sponsoring me. They're not paying me to say this or nothing. They were just like, hey, do you want to try this bait? They didn't even ask me to mention it in a video, but did so well with the bait today and the fish that I caught today. It's kind of like, I got to bring it up. I mean, it's a well-rounded bait. So let's move on to the lipless. All right, so we talked about the square bills, the winds to throw it. I mean, you know, wind, I want to throw this up in deep cover and stuff like that, or even if they're pushed off the bank and I kind of want this bait in that 2 to 6 foot range. But the wares, just like I said, you know, cover. Square bills are so efficient in cover. Now, lipless. This is a bait that people typically, you know, put down after spring, and I don't really understand why, because a lipless, you can move it extremely fast without having to, you know, worry about the bait running left, right, up, down, whatever. It just runs real efficiently when you're trying to reel that bait super fast and trigger bites, especially for fishing long points and stuff. So the wares, as far as the lipless, cover and all that stuff is really good, like with the square bill. But I'm typically going to run the lipless, you know, on those big open points when I'm trying to cover a lot of water. I'm throwing this bait out there. This is a 1/2 ounce. This is by Thunderhawk also. But I'm throwing this bait out there, and there's 2 ways that I run it. If the fish are close to the top of the water, I'm going to burn it close to the top of the water. If I do not see those fish busting and they're kind of close to the bottom or kind of suspended, then I'm going to try to target that range, but I'm going to make super long casts. I'm going to make this bait real erratic, popping it as I'm reeling it and stuff like that. Another great thing you can do is popping this thing up off bottom. So actually throwing that bait out there, let it fall, hit bottom, and then pop, reel, pop, kind of like you would work a hair jig in a way, or a flutter spoon. You're kind of going to work this the same way. It's going to be super fast, but it's real efficient to cover those points and stuff like that. So let's get into the setup. So the setup, guys. Now, as I've always said, buy whatever rods you can afford. Y'all know how I am. It is what it is. Buy what you can afford, what you feel comfortable getting. This is a 7-foot medium cranking rod, okay? So this is a graphite rod, but it's a moderate action rod, okay? So you want that medium moderate action just because it's got a lot of give in the tip. And what that does, it keeps those fish from slinging that bait up out of their mouth when you're trying to pull them out of cover or just anywhere. It doesn't really matter. The only thing you got to watch out for is obviously if you get into something super deep. So if you're in like super deep cover, you know, it does have give where they can't throw the hook, but they can get you tangled up pretty easy. So, you know, you kind of, what I try to do is as soon as I get that hook in them when they're in cover, like that nice one I called earlier, this A100, I just cranked down on it as hard as I could and got the fish out of there, you know, as efficiently as I could, and it come out of there no problem. So you know, you kind of got to watch out with that with immediate moderate action, but you're not gonna miss near as many fish. Now the gear ratio that I like to run typically with my square bills, it's not slow but it's not fast either. A 6:8 gear ratio that gives me the perfect amount of torque, but I'm not really sacrificing speed. I can get that good cadence, or I can speed it up pretty easily just by, you know, turning the reel handle faster. I typically go with 12-pound fluorocarbon with my crankbaits. The reason I do that, I know I'm fishing around cover and stuff like that a lot, but it helps that bait dive to the proper depth that it's supposed to dive, so I'm not sacrificing any depth, you know, by running anything heavier. You can get away with 15-pound fluorocarbon. As a matter of fact, if you've got a rod just set up for lipless crankbaits, I would highly suggest 15-pound test. That way, you know, you got that stronger test. You can still run that bait at whatever depth you want to run it at very comfortably. I do use fluorocarbon. Now, monofilament is a great option when you're running crankbaits also, so don't be afraid to throw monofilament. You'll have that line stretch. That way, you know, it kind of helps eliminate the fish from, you know, jumping and throwing your bait. So either way, guys, I hope the video helped you. If it does, make sure to like, subscribe for more content. Also, we got members only now, $2 a month. That helps me out with gas, tackle, all that stuff, equipment, camera equipment, you know, the whole 9 yards. If you can do it, great. If you can't, I appreciate it anyways. Just don't forget to hit that like button, especially if the video helped you. It helped me out a whole lot. If you have any questions, always drop a comment down below, and I'll see you next time. I've got to get another drink. I still got some backer juice hanging around. That'll be at the end of the clip.